Hi, and welcome to episode 68 of Let's Talk Bitcoin, a twice-weekly show about the ideas, people, and projects building the digital economy and the future of money. Visit us at letstalkbitcoin.com for our daily guest blog, all our past episodes, and of course, tipping addresses. My name is Adam B. Levine, and you're going to pawn your Bitcoins. Wait, what? John Light is the founder of new venture PawnCoin that allows you to get a payday loan for part of your cryptocurrency's value. Stephanie and John talk through the idea at the Vegas event. What do you think? Then, Bitcoin the currency or token is fundamentally different than Bitcoin the technology or network. Stephanie, Andreas, and I discuss the problems of widely available but anonymized data and what happens when genuinely no one person knows all the answers. Later, Alan Safahi is the CEO of ZipZap, a company that in a perfect world you never even hear about because they blend seamlessly into the background. Andreas is at the Latin America conference talking prepaid cards, remittance, and the slow creep of progress in a regulated world. And finally, Rick Willard is the founder of Mint Combine, a worldwide incubator taking an interest in Bitcoin. He and Stephanie talk about the HTML to Bitcoin's TCP/IP, how he got his first Bitcoin, and riding the wave of cryptocurrency. I'm on vacation. Enjoy the show.
I'm here today and I'm talking with John Light. Hey John, welcome back to Let's Talk Bitcoin.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I'm glad to be here.
You've been on the show before, haven't you? We're talking about your cloud-based identity projects, right?
Yeah, it's not really my project. It's something that I'm casually interested in, though, just because the personal clouds thing is going to lead to a full decentralization of the web and a return to user-centric web experience, which I think is really important given the really intense centralization that has occurred throughout the history of Web 2.0. But I've recently been focusing on a startup that I'm working on called PawnCoin, which is basically applying the business model of the pawn shop to Bitcoin. So instead of going to a pawn shop and pawning gold or some other kind of jewelry or high-end electronics, you can pawn your Bitcoins.
Tell me more about that.
So the website is pawncoin.com, and customers are going to be able to come onto our website, create an account, and apply for a pawn cash advance based on the value of their Bitcoins. So if they have $1,000 worth of Bitcoins, they can get a $300 cash advance. And after 30 days, the customer can pay us back the cash advance plus a redemption fee and get their Bitcoins back.
Okay, and so how much would the fee be? Because that's a criticism of traditional services like this, is that they have 30% fees and things like that, and usually people don't pay it back. Is that right?
It's a 10% redemption fee, and actually in the pawn industry, in the traditional pawn industry, they typically have a repayment rate of about 80%. Usually people pawn items that are personally important to them, and so they have an incentive to come back and get it. In our case, the incentive is that Bitcoin is an asset with an appreciating value. Of course, there are dips, but the long-term trend is it crashes up, basically. And so we want people to come back and get their Bitcoins back so that they can either trade on it or use them for a Bitcoin pawn transaction in the future.
So this is basically a small short-term microloan with the Bitcoins as collateral, is that right?
Exactly. And so we don't ask for any credit history information from the customer because this isn't a line of credit. This is like a collateralized cash advance. And in fact, the contract is structured as a sale, and the customer just has the option to reverse the contract and get their Bitcoins back at the end of the month.
Yeah, so I could see a lot of different possibilities for this, but are you envisioning mostly at first this is going to be something that people in the U.S. kind of take advantage of, or is it going to be more worldwide?
Well, we are going to be focusing on the U.S. market at first because this is the market I know. However, Bitcoin is exploding all over the world as a global phenomenon, and this kind of microfinancing model could make a lot of sense in regions where maybe the local currency isn't so stable, or just people want to hold on to their Bitcoins, but they need cash to cover a short-term cash shortage, or they just want to lever up and trade in the markets. So we definitely have international ambitions with this business model.
Okay, so speaking of the volatility of Bitcoin, I have a question. So let's say somebody wants to take out a sort of a payday loan, and they have Bitcoin, and they put down one Bitcoin, and they say, okay, I need $1,000. You pay them $1,000, and then suddenly, in the term of their loan, Bitcoin goes up to $10,000. Do they have to repay $10,000, or do they just have to repay what they borrowed?
They just have to repay what they borrowed, and so the benefit of our business model to the customer is that it allows them to access the value of their Bitcoins without any concern for what the future price of Bitcoin is. If Bitcoin goes up in value, then as quick as they can get the money back to us is as quick as they can get their Bitcoins back, and they can either sell the Bitcoins to realize that appreciation value, or just hold on to them for savings to realize even more future gains.
Yeah, I see. That's a cool idea. So, have you yourself ever used a service like this, like a payday lender or anything like that?
I haven't used payday loans per se. I have used a pawn shop before when I was younger. I've pawned items, and I've also gone to pawn shops to buy things just because you can get things for a good price at pawn shops sometimes. It's like a secondhand store, So I just kind of have, I guess, nostalgic memories of pawn shops, but the service itself is something that I have found that I would be useful to me as a Bitcoin investor. I don't have stocks. I don't really have a whole lot of physical assets that I can just sell on a whim, especially liquid physical assets that are easy to sell for a good price. I've always thought it would be nice to be able to use my Bitcoins as collateral for just short-term cash whenever I need it, and so that's how I got the idea for PawnCoin in the first place. Okay,
wow. So this is cool, and I have a lot of questions, but first I want to ask you, how would the person actually get the cash? Let's say they go to your website and they say, okay, I want to put down one Bitcoin. How do they get the cash as what they need as a loan?
So our first payment options that we're going to be offering is money orders and Ripple payments. Ripple is really advantageous because it offers irreversible payments. So when the customer pays us back, we have no risk of a chargeback when we actually give the Bitcoins back to them. But it's also because it allows us to route around the banking system. As I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar, banks in the U.S. aren't very friendly to Bitcoin businesses. It's just Bitcoin. It really is just Bitcoin. I know businesses that are based on Ripple who are not having any problem getting bank accounts. Why? Because it's not Bitcoin. So we're able to route around the banking issue of dealing with ACH payments processors and stuff like that by going straight to Ripple. We do plan on offering ACH and other kinds of bank-related payment options to our customers in the future if there are any banks who are willing to work with us, because that does open us up to a wider potential market for that particular kind of payment option. But right now we're just focusing on money orders and Ripple.
Okay, so conceivably with a money order or Ripple payment, the person could get access to their funds that day or the next day, right, after they take out the loan?
Yeah, with Ripple, the customer could have their money as quick as same day, depending on how fast their gateway is able to get the money into their bank account. And then with a money order, yeah, they could potentially have it if they choose to next day a shipping option, then they could have the money order in the mail next day.
Are you concerned about sort of government finding out about this and trying to somehow claim that you're an unlicensed money transmitter or whatever?
No, not at all. Our business model isn't in no way falls under money transmission guidelines under any state that we've looked at, and there's 48 states with money transmitter licenses and 2 without. So making sure that I could do the business legally and compliantly was the first concern that I had when I first thought of the business model, and spent a couple months figuring that out, and was able to answer all those questions. No, we're not a money transmitter. No, we're not even a money services business. We're a pawn business.
Right. Cool. So with pawn shops, you mentioned before that you can usually get good prices on electronics and other items at pawn shops, and yeah, that's what I understand to be the case too. I've had a couple of experiences where I've bought like precious metals at pawn shops because you can get a good deal. But with this, I imagine it might be a little bit different, because if people don't repay their loan, let's say, and then you're up to sell their Bitcoin, are you going to be selling their Bitcoin, first of all, if they don't repay their loan that they took out, and are you going to be selling it at a discount, or do you think you won't even need to do that?
If the business really needs cash, then we'll sell the Bitcoins, but my plan is really to just keep the Bitcoins. As a company, we're in the Bitcoin market, we're long Bitcoin, and so it really just makes sense to hold on to the Bitcoin if a customer chooses not to redeem their contract and realize the gains as Bitcoin appreciates over time.
Yeah, cool. And so I imagine there's going to be very low overhead too, because another thing with pawn shops is they have to worry about security when they're talking about physical items. And would this be a completely web-based thing?
Yeah, this is completely web-based. There's still a little bit of a security overhead, but not nearly as much as the physical security necessary for storing large quantities of valuable objects. Instead, our security is more distributed and more technologically oriented, but hopefully the overhead isn't really that much. We just have a developer team that can help us scale the platform, and the real, I guess, overhead is more associated with the capital that we're actually advancing to customers. That's going to be the real where a lot of the money is at in this business.
And so where are you getting that? Are you looking for investors right now, or do you have it all set?
Well, we have some parties who are interested in providing the money that's actually going to be advanced to customers. We're looking for investors in our seed round right now to invest directly for equity in the company to help fund operations throughout our seed stage as well as our early growth stage. Right now we're pre-launch, but if you go to pawncoin.com, you can enter your email address and sign up for email updates and access to our early private beta once the platform's actually ready for people to start using it. Right now we're just looking for investors mostly just for operational capital than anything else.
Okay, so pawncoin.com, and where can people follow you on Twitter and find out about all of your other projects? Yeah,
I'm on Twitter at Lightcoin, LIGHTCOIN, and of course you can sign up through pawncoin.com if you want to stay up to date about everything we're doing there.
Cool, John. Yeah, thanks for telling me about that. Is there anything else you want to add?
This conference has been really great so far, and I encourage everybody, if there's a good conference in your area, please show up, and of course tip the Let's Talk Bitcoin team because they're awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and thanks for talking with me today.
Thank you, Stephanie.
For a while now, we've been talking about the clear distinction between Bitcoin, the currency, and Bitcoin, the underlying technology. And this is a very important distinction because no matter what happens to the currency, as far as I'm concerned, currency is only the first app on the Bitcoin network. So the Bitcoin coins, the currency, are only the first application running on top of the Bitcoin network. Really what Satoshi Nakamoto gave us was an elegant solution to a distributed computing problem that had existed unsolved for 40 years. It's called the Byzantine generals problem, and it's the issue of achieving consensus on a distributed system when none of the parties can be trusted, when the network cannot be trusted. And the elegant solution that Satoshi Nakamoto gave us with proof of work is not a perfect solution, but it is a far optimized solution that works at scale. Now, what we really haven't noticed yet is that distributed computing is not the only area where new science is being developed. And I'd like to introduce two concepts today of new science that I think are going to become highly impactful as a result of the development of cryptocurrencies based on the blockchain. The first one is computational macroeconomics. Basically, what this means is macroeconomics is the study of whole economies. And so it's the study of monetary supply, inflation, deflation, GDP across an entire economy. It's the kind of thing that the Federal Reserve and Central Bank will do. With the invention of cryptocurrencies, we can actually do computational macroeconomics, which means doing macroeconomics not based on statistics, but based on actual quantitative data derived directly from the blockchain interactions. We can see how many coins are being produced. We can see the inflation rate of the coin. We can compare it to the exchange rate. We can see an entire economy operation in real time with full quantitative analytics. And to me, that creates new science, because so far in macroeconomics, we've only ever been able to study whole economies by proxy through statistical analysis, and usually far delayed from the actual moment of impact. So you're looking at statistics that are trailing by 6 to 9 months, and then you're trying to find causation correlation between the statistics you're looking at and what actually happened in the economy. Well, with cryptocurrencies, you don't need to do that. You can do quantitative analysis directly on the data in real time. And that's never happened before. So that's whole new science. The other aspect of that is computational microeconomics. So where microeconomics is the study of markets, products, and flows within an economy, the study of corporations, balance sheets, commodity pricing, etc. within an economy, we can do computational microeconomics with cryptocurrency. Essentially, all of the data you need to study an economy is right there in the blockchain. And I'm not talking about the big numbers like mining and inflation and coins created. I'm talking about individual transactions and being able to gather massive big data, quantitative analytics on the transactions that are occurring within the blockchain. And no one has ever had that kind of depth of insight into economies that are this wide. So again, rather than studying quarterly reports from companies 3 months after they occur and looking at this trying to derive causation correlation of statistical data, we can do quantitative real-time data analytics directly on the blockchain. Again, this is completely new science. It's never been done before. And I think it's one of the things that we overlook when we talk about Bitcoin, the currency. Even if the currency goes away, Satoshi has given us new science in several areas of life. And I think those things will have a far broader and reaching effect in the future.
Doesn't a lot of this analysis potentially ride on knowing who is associated with different Bitcoin addresses? There could be some mistaken assumptions built into that, right? Recently, there was a study that was done by some Israeli researchers, and they erroneously claimed that some very early created Bitcoins or a very early created wallet sent a bunch of Bitcoins to the alleged Silk Road operator, Ross Ulbricht, and they were on his seized computer. And then they claimed that it must have been Satoshi Nakamoto because they were created so early that only he would have a wallet. And in fact, someone came out and said, no, that wasn't Satoshi. It was me. I am not Satoshi. I was just an early adopter. And actually, I sent those Bitcoins to Mt. Gox, not to the Silk Road.
Right.
I think it's charitable to call that a mistake. It's worth pointing out two things. One, this paper was sponsored by Citi. Citi, as in Citigroup, one of the large six banks. And second, at first it had credibility because it was co-authored by Adi Shamir, who's the S in RSA, as in one of the most respected cryptographers, until he published that paper. Sorry, Adi Shamir, you lost my respect for shilling for Citi right there and then.
Back to the problem of pseudo-anonymity. I mean, we all know that the Bitcoin transactions are really not anonymous, but they're not perfectly traceable either, right? Like most Bitcoin transactions, we don't have a clue who is actually behind moving that money around. How does that factor into an economic analysis when you don't know the demographics of the people who are making the transactions?
So it factors in two ways. In terms of computational macroeconomics, it doesn't matter because you're looking at aggregate flows and you're looking at inflation and things like that across the economy. In terms of computational microeconomics, what it means is that you can study in depth, in real time, with full quantitative data, those companies that are implementing open books on the blockchain. So we've already talked about how charities can implement transparency by publishing which accounts and addresses they use, and essentially using the blockchain as an open ledger of accounting. Now, you could do that also with public companies and presumably digital autonomous corporations that are incorporated on the blockchain. Essentially, those that opt in to revealing information about their accounts provide a microcosm that is studyable in incredible detail. But the worst case scenario, if you have no information about senders and recipients, you're right back to traditional microeconomics that deals with statistics. So the worst case scenario of computational microeconomics is microeconomics, and the best case scenario is real-time quantitative insight into what companies are doing. That's certainly an improvement on what we had before.
But it creates a competitive situation where there wasn't a competitive situation before. And so that's good for people who are actually doing the job. But for people out there, for companies out there that like the fact that they don't have transparency, this actually might present a problem, because if other people are doing it, if this becomes a normal thing, how do you continue to operate and retain your credibility if there's this stand? I mean, like, again, do you think that we could actually shift to a cultural norm where transparency is the standard?
For corporate accounts, yes, absolutely. I think not only will we shift, but I think it's absolutely necessary that we shift. And that power shift comes from the fact that cryptocurrencies have fundamentally altered the relationship between people and their money, and between people and their governments, and eventually between people and corporations. We're not just disrupting money, we're disrupting the very essence of the modern corporation today. Yeah, it's going to create some very interesting incentives, and eventually lack of transparency is going to be seen as a weird kind of antebellum fact, rather than the modern way of doing things, which will be transparency. I think there's an opportunity here to shift the culture, and certainly the ability to derive useful data from that, valuable data from that, is going to do a lot to shift that culture. So start your Hadoop engines, people, because when you take the 15 gig blockchain and you unpack all of those transactions and all of the relationships between them, you end up with a petabyte size data set that has enormous value. There's a lot to mine there.
Yeah, so I guess we're going to start seeing firms that are forming, for the specific intent of mining the public data on the blockchain, and potentially doing something, turning that into something that they can make money off of. Do you think we'll also see people kind of, moralizing? Like, it seems like a lot of the analysis of the ways that people spend Bitcoin, someone is making moral judgments about it, right? Like, oh, these transactions from Satoshi Dice are too small, so it must be spam. These transactions are too large. Somebody must be moving a lot of money around for nefarious purposes. It must be terrorism. So do you think that'll increase if there's more analysis that gets done on the blockchain? Maybe it's inevitable.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. It's a matter of time before a lot of those are proven wrong again and again and again, and stop doing idle speculation without data. But as I said before, the worst case scenario of computational microeconomics is the mess we're in today, which is a completely opaque economy that is rife with corruption and rent seeking and thieving and all of these problems, and we just choose to pretend they're not actually happening.
So, the counterpoint to this whole thing is that this is not just applicable to corporations. This is very, very much applicable to our political system, because one of the problems that we have around the world with our political systems is that there isn't very much, again, financial transparency, right? There's not much accountability either, but I think that a big reason why there isn't any accountability is because the transparency has been such a problem. So, in the past, if you have to keep gold in a vault, then it's easy to print more dollars than you can realistically back by gold, because who can check? But in a Bitcoin empowered financial system, that same problem doesn't apply, and every bill could have a different Bitcoin address that has a certain guaranteed amount put into it. And that would actually be feasible and would work, right? That's the logical conclusion of this. Isn't Bitcoin to money, it's Bitcoin to everything.
Yeah, I would like to see a world where corporations, governments, and large institutions are forced to have transparency, and all of the rest of us are using remixers by default baked into the client and have complete anonymity. That's how the power balance should be.
So Julian Assange has a quote, and you can think what you like about Julian Assange. This quote I really like. He said, "Privacy for the weak and transparency for the powerful." And I think that really is the kind of two sides of the Bitcoin sword here, right? I mean, because it is privacy, but it's also transparency at the same time. And the question is, how large is the scale of the thing that you're doing? Because if everything is transparent, then Stephanie, you're right. Large transactions will attract attention. And so if it's all transparent, then that's there. But small transactions get lost amongst everything else.
Yeah, they call their privacy secrecy and national security to imbibe it with importance. And they call our privacy privacy to tell us that it's already dead. And that has to change. So yeah, exactly. Transparency at the top, privacy at the bottom is how our society should work, not the other way around, which is how it works today.
But is there a potential for mistaken identity I'm thinking of a scenario where there's a large transaction that happens, and basically exactly what happened with the allegation that Satoshi was investing in the Silk Road. Somebody says, oh, it must have been this, and they make up a story about it that sounds really bad and damning. Nobody comes out and owns up to it and says, no, actually, this was me giving my mother a birthday present. What could potentially happen? I mean, could this be used as evidence against somebody? And who knows? I'm kind of worried about that.
If it's used as evidence, then our standards of evidence have gotten even worse than I thought that they had.
Are.
Well, I know they are.
Bad.
I mean, really? I mean, like, I just don't see something like this in terms of supposition being even. I mean, am I wrong?
No, remixers for the rest of us. That's basically it. You know, if you're a politician and subject to campaign finance laws, you have to use publicly listed Bitcoin addresses so that everyone can check the shared ledger. And if you're a corporation that is acting as a nonprofit, you have to use publicly listed Bitcoin addresses. And all of the rest of us should remix up the wazoo. So everything is tainted with everything and no one can track what we're doing. But yes, you will have these weird scenarios where people will assume they have privacy and instead what they'll get is outed for making a transaction. But that's no different from what we have now. The only difference is the only people who have the power to out you for financial transactions today are intelligence agencies. Whereas with the open blockchain ledger, we can all do this and we can do it to the powerful as much as they can do it to us. And I like that better.
Purse.io is a gift exchange that helps you shop on Amazon with Bitcoins and at a 6% discount. How does it work? You create an Amazon wish list, share it with Purse.io, and deposit Bitcoin equivalent to the cost of your item. You'll soon receive your item in the mail, purchased for you by someone who gets your Bitcoin in return. You must try this new service. Let's Talk Bitcoin listeners will even receive additional rewards. Visit Purse.io. When you shop with Bitcoin on Gift, you can get gift cards from over 200 retailers. Think of the possibilities. Not only is your holiday shopping taken care of in a snap from your Android device or on the web, but now you have a way to purchase everyday items from stores like Target, CVS, Gap, and GameStop using your Bitcoins. That's not even the best part. When you shop with Bitcoin on Gift, you get 3% back. Ready to shop? Visit GYFT.com today.
This is Andreas Antonopoulos at the Latin America Bitcoin Conference here in Argentina in Buenos Aires. And with me today I have Alan Sapahi of ZipZap. Alan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So ZipZap is one of the companies that helped me get my first Bitcoin in collaboration with BitInstant, and I am forever grateful to you for that. Certainly spurred a whole industry for helping people with a minimal level of hassle to get cash directly into Bitcoin.
Thank you so much for that endorsement.
It is the truth. And tell me a bit about the history of ZipZap. How did you decide to get involved in Bitcoin? What is your background, and what is the history behind ZipZap?
My personal background is prepaid card processing. I was involved with issuing prepaid Visa and MasterCard products, and we got involved with ZipZap and cash payment because we were getting customers from around the world trying to buy prepaid cards from us, and we of course couldn't sell to them because of different franchise rules that the networks have. So I started digging into it and found out that people wanted to buy prepaid cards so they can shop online at the merchants in the U.S. They didn't have credit cards, or if they had it, they couldn't use them due to restrictions and fraud controls and so forth. So that's how originally I got involved in the cash payment network, because I thought that's the easiest way for customers to shop online. They can just pay cash locally. But of course, it turned out that it was harder to convince the merchants that they should serve these customers that they haven't served. And even though we had a few merchants that were very interested, it became a challenge because they didn't have resources to implement our solution, and they didn't have logistics in place to ship to some of the countries that we were trying to serve. So in the process of doing all of this, I learned about Bitcoin and found out that this is an area that's underserved, that they need liquidity. They need, for a currency to survive and thrive, you have to have cash in and cash out locations. So I decided to pivot and focus on providing support for exchanges like BitInstant and others.
And when did this happen?
That was like June of 2011, I believe. So 2000. Oh, wow. Actually, 2012, June of 2012, I think that's when we started our first transaction with them.
Okay, great. And since then, ZipZap has been a very important player in the cash in, cash out aspect of Bitcoin. Now, I know one of your main partners, at least in the U.S., through which I was introduced to ZipZap, was BitInstant. Right. But you have other partnerships around the world?
Yes, we have a partnership that's going to be going live soon with Kraken in Europe. We have partnership with CoinEx, CamblyX in the U.S. We have partners in Asia that are integrating with us, Singapore, Hong Kong, a few even in Latin America, 2 in Canada. So we're expanding globally. Pretty much most of the exchanges, with the notable exception of Coinbase and Mt. Gox, we have everybody. Bitstamp is a client as well. Mm-hmm. So
that's very good. Where do you see the future of this industry going now that Bitcoin is gradually reaching a level of awareness that we hadn't had before? I wouldn't call it mainstream anywhere near yet, but certainly the demand has spiked. And for a lot of people, it is very difficult to buy Bitcoin. It's very difficult to set up exchange accounts and do all of the KYC, AML stuff. So cash is obviously a very popular alternative. Where do you see the hotspots for this development?
Yeah, so I think the best use case for Bitcoin is remittance. We are focused on remittance right now. We think microtransactions and e-commerce could come down the road, become very important. But right now I'm focused on building the cash in and the cash out solution. And in the middle, we use Bitcoin for transferring the money between different exchanges. We also did the same thing in partnership with Ripple to use the Ripple gateways for that. So I think in terms of where the industry is going, the attention that the Bitcoin is getting from the rising price, although it's not good for it as a currency, it does serve a purpose of educating the public. You see more and more people getting involved in understanding Bitcoin, learning, buying it, getting involved in it, and you see more investment money coming into it, which would then hopefully down the road create better solutions, easier ways to partner with wallets and exchanges. So it's all good. I think long term, I would like to see the prices stabilize, and I think maybe there's a lot of speculation built into the price, but if people often ask me, should I buy Bitcoin at this price or that price? And I say, if you take the value of what PayPal is doing, or what MoneyGram or Western Union is doing, or what Visa, MasterCard is doing, and you convert that to 11 million Bitcoins that are out there, a Bitcoin could be worth $100,000 or $1 million. If you look at the upside potential, the replacement of those giants. So that's the market we're in. It's a market that has trillions of dollars of upside potential. In a course of a day, there's $5 trillion worth of currency exchanges that happen every day. So can Bitcoin play a small part of that? Because today, Bitcoin is only about $200 million a day. So there's a lot of upside potential. But if somebody gets into Bitcoin and buys it, they should look at it for long term. And not speculate that it's going to get to that 10,000 or 100,000 by the next week or by this Christmas. It's not going to happen.
The most important advice there is do not panic.
Do not panic, yeah,
there's
exactly.
There's a lot of volatility, but if you just hold on there, there's a lot of opportunity.
You should become a value investor. You invest in Bitcoin. I like what Eric Voorhees said, which is there is a Bitcoin with a capital B, which is the currency, and there's a Bitcoin with a small b, which is the platform. And I say invest in a platform. That's the real sustainable value of Bitcoin. The currency is good, but the Bitcoin capital, Bitcoin is good. It's needed, but the reason you should buy the currency is because you believe in the power of the Bitcoin as a platform, as what it could do for humanity, which is subject of my presentation here in Argentina.
So remittances is the focus of your business right now. Of the entire international financial market, there are certainly many flows with many billions and trillions of dollars going around. Why remittances?
It's the biggest pain point. First of all, I'm an immigrant myself to the U.S. from Iran. I see the trouble that the foreigners have to go through in any westernized world to send money back home. We saw in the UK, thousands of MSPs lost their bank relationship, and because of that, they couldn't service their clients who wanted to send money back home to like Ethiopia. And so as a result, the Ethiopian guy who's receiving money from his family in the UK, maybe he couldn't eat that week. So we can make an immediate impact by doing the remittance right, and Bitcoin allows us to do that. The fees are being charged that are very, very high. Here in Argentina, I heard that you can pay up to 50%, to send money across the water to Uruguay. So some of that it has to do with the monetary policies here, but the remittance fees are still very high. On the average with Western Union or MoneyGram, you're paying up to about the average of 9%, but in some countries, the poorer the countries, the higher the fees. So you can pay up to 25%. Average to send money to some poor countries. So I thought that's not right. We could do a lot better as humanity can do a lot better. We don't need to be enriching our pockets and getting 7 to 10% quarterly profits when people can afford at the backs of those people in the third world countries that can't afford it. And the other thing is, I look at, we're giving money away in foreign aid to these countries, to the top of the governments, and hoping that it would trickle down to the bottom of the economy. But at the same time, we're taking up to $74 billion a year from the bottom of the economy in remittance fees. So why not just get rid of the remittance fees and not have to give as much in foreign aid? I like to help these people in these third world countries to become self-sufficient, to come out of poverty, to get clean water, have better sanitation, less, diseases. And to do that, you have to help do innovations. And I think Bitcoin is that innovation that allows us to do it. So that's why remittance for me is so important, because I can very quickly, immediately touch off billions of people and enhance their lives.
That's a very powerful message. I think the remittance industry, unfortunately, is probably one of the most exploitative industries in the world. And at the moment, they enjoy profit margins that are, depending on how you look at it, obscene, but simply unsustainable, because the underlying value of what they do, which is transferring payments across borders, is partly offset by risk of exchange rates and things like that, but part of it is really just the cost of the underlying infrastructure and pure profit and greed. So when you introduce a platform like Bitcoin, where the underlying overhead goes to zero, and you take out some of the greed from that, it's truly a world-changing technology and platform.
Yeah, I think there's an argument that there's you have to pay the toll when you cross a bridge, but then after a while that bridge is being paid for, and you're still charging that high toll fee, and then the poorer you are, the higher the fees. That's the problem I have with remittance. I don't have a problem for anybody to get paid for building the infrastructure to support remittance. MoneyGram, Western Union, all of these guys that are in the remittance business did a great service building that infrastructure. What I have a problem is for them to continue to charge these higher fees after that remittance platform has been bought and paid for 1,000 times over. The other thing is, Bitcoin doesn't have any cost in transmitting the money, so I think businesses should always be disrupted. I believe in disrupting my own businesses. So I think there's a better option, and I think MoneyGram and Western Union need to adapt to this technology and embrace it instead of fighting it, instead of sitting on the sideline not doing anything about it. They should be part of the solution. And we reached out to them, actually. We want to be partners with them. We want to work together to reduce these fees to the unbanked. But that's up to them, not us.
Yes, and the unbanked are the vast majority of the immigrant and itinerant workers who depend on remittances to feed not just a couple of members of family, but extended families that support entire communities and entire developing economies back home.
Yeah, it's 53% of the world population is not serviced by financial institutions. It's according to World Bank. That's about 2.5 billion people of those are considered in poverty. They make less than $2 a day. In India alone, we have 700 million people that make less than $2 a day. So they get a lot of money from their family, friends from overseas, and not a lot of money, but for them it will be a lot of money. And for them to pay these high fees is not right. Okay, so I think we can do better. And we have to do it in stages. So at ZipZap, we are building the cash in and the cash out. So the customer puts the cash in, and the recipient gets the cash out. But they never know that we're using Bitcoin in the middle. And then eventually, in the developed countries, you could have somebody using their mobile wallet to send money to a developing country. But then on the receiving side, they're still getting cash, but on the sender, they're using a mobile wallet. Yeah. And then the goal is at some point to do what M-Pesa did in Kenya, which is mobile-to-mobile transfer, where there's no cost. You have your phone, you have your Bitcoin wallet on your phone, and you send it to your family that has a Bitcoin wallet on the other end. But I'm pragmatic. I know that's not going to happen right away. It took a long time for M-Pesa to do it, and they had full support of the government and everybody else, the infrastructure from phone companies. So it's going to take time, but in the meanwhile, let's do the cash in and cash out, and let's slowly adapt to this utopia of having, mobile to mobile, no cost. That's my goal. I want to disrupt my own business where I won't charge any fees for transferring remittance. And when I achieve that goal, then I think the work is done. We can make money other ways. We don't have to make it by charging fees.
Especially from the poorest people in the world.
Exactly, yeah.
I have a feeling I know why you're not going to get much cooperation and partnership from some of these companies, and the simple reason is that their entire business model is based on profit margins that even if they try to co-opt and adopt Bitcoin are not sustainable. And so unfortunately, when the cost goes to almost zero, the profit margins have to follow, and these businesses cannot sustain shareholder reports every quarter where they don't deliver 7% profit growth.
Right.
And so they're going to resist.
Yeah, and I agree. I think they need to find a way to explain to the shareholders and explain to the Wall Street that they're going to get disrupted. So either they do it or somebody else is going to do it. So you look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The companies that create Dow Jones, there's only one that has remained, GE, from the original group. Okay, where did U.S. Steel go? Where did all these other dinosaurs go? They didn't adapt. GE adapted, and bought, TV, bought NBC and bought other things and medical devices and aircraft and diversified, and so they exist and they survive and they do well. I think any of these money transfer companies, if they don't adapt and embrace new technologies and innovations, they're going to be extinct. So they need to explain that to their shareholders. It's a tough sell. I agree with that, but they need to start having those kind of conversations. I know Western Union understands Bitcoin very well, and I know that they are monitoring very closely, and will someday step in. I just hope it's not too late for them.
Yeah, I think probably most of the companies that are looking at Bitcoin fail to see Bitcoin as a platform. They see it primarily as a currency, and they also fail to anticipate the speed with which this will develop. I think it's going to take all of us by surprise how fast these things, especially if you are able and successful in bootstrapping remittance flows in certain key areas where they are so needed. There is a dammed up massive money, $500 billion sitting behind a dam of regulation and inefficiency, and you put a little hole in that dam, and it's going to come crashing down.
We're going to put a big crack in that dam, I tell you. This is utilizing, internet came in and changed, e-commerce, whatever. Utilizing Bitcoin, we can change payments. I think payments innovation hasn't been keeping up with the rest of the technology. There haven't been a lot of innovations for the past 50 years in payments. So there's tons of opportunities, and it's very tough. It's the hardest business to really innovate because of regulations and because of all the established players and the logistics of dealing globally. You need a lot of scale. You can't just do a payment option for San Francisco. You got to do it globally. Yeah. So, it's very tough to do. And, and I'm one that doesn't shy away from challenges. So, I'm here in Argentina trying to set up payment centers, knowing all the challenges we have here in terms of getting to remittance and so forth. But it can be done, and it will be done. And we're leveraging the technology for the good. And we're not thinking about whether or not it's going to affect people's pockets, the shareholders and investors. I think our investors understand that we are building value and creating relationships worldwide, and we can make money servicing these customers with other things. Think of it as a premium service, freemium service, where you provide a free service for remittance, but maybe you can charge for other value-added services to make up for your revenues.
I think this is a very positive and morally correct business model, and in finance that's a pretty rare thing. I think disruption could not happen to a more deserving bunch, and at the same time, if you bring these kinds of services, it could not happen to a more deserving group in humanity that have really been neglected, oppressed, and underserved for millennia.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're spending trillions of dollars with security, but we could have really even out the odds and helping equalize the odds for these people in the third world countries, so they're not prone to terrorism. But when people can make money, when they have unemployment rates that are double digits, and they're getting these kind of exuberant remittance fees, so they turn to violence. I think the bigger humanitarian aspect of Bitcoin is that it allows us to help these people get out of poverty, to help them be able to get clean water, sanitation, healthcare, and eventually, get better education. And maybe down the road, they become customers of the West. They want the same things we want for their kids. So why not help them achieve that? The third world countries, the people there have done commerce for thousands of years. We just need to help them in the future do e-commerce, give them the tools. So why not, instead of giving foreign aid that goes to the top of the government, help reduce the fees to the bottom of the economy and reducing the remittance fees? And why not give them the tools that they can succeed in e-commerce and microtransactions down the road? So that's the questions the debate I want to have about Bitcoin is that. I want the press and the politicians and regulators think about how investing in these infrastructures would actually benefit humanity and benefit us in the West. It's like when they didn't tax the internet for e-commerce, it helped it grow and prosper. So they should do the same thing. Let's not create regulations that make it tough on Bitcoin. Let's really invest in Bitcoin. I think government and banks should really invest in Bitcoin to help spread it out, to help these 7 billion people in the world come out of poverty and become customers in the future.
Right. It's one of the slogans on our show at Let's Talk Bitcoin, and we constantly keep repeating, this is all about the other 6 billion.
Yeah.
It's not about Western developed nations. Bitcoin, to us, is a technological fad. It's interesting. It can lead to some interesting entrepreneurial opportunities. But to the other 6 billion, it's a matter of life and death.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So this has been an inspiring interview. I wish you all success in your mission. And thank you so much, Alan Safahi from ZipZap.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being on our show.
And thank you for the great job you guys are doing in spreading the word. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Take care.
Purse.io is a gift exchange that lets you get Bitcoins at only a 6% premium and with a credit card. How does it work? You purchase items for other Purse.io members from their Amazon wish lists. In return, you get Bitcoins in the amount of the Amazon purchase. The more people participate, the more Bitcoins will be available, so tell your friends. Get exclusive access today at Purse.io. EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.
Here today talking with Rick Willard, and he is the founder of Mint Combine, which is a technology incubator for startups, and it's based out of the East Coast, but also worldwide. Is that right? Tell me more about that, Rick.
Yes, we actually have a presence in North and South America, in Africa, and soon in Europe and Asia as well. Maybe Singapore or Shanghai. We're not really sure yet. We're here actually at Inside Bitcoins to negotiate something with BTC China, so that would most likely make it Shanghai. But right now we have portfolio companies in Toronto, New York, Nairobi, Kenya, and in Chile.
So that's quite an impressive reach. So what's going on in each of those spaces with Bitcoin startups? What kinds of companies are you seeing come out of each of those places?
It's really interesting because each has their own regulatory issues. What we're seeing in Canada, because of their more sort of laissez-faire and relaxed regulatory ecosystem, that we're doing a more social commerce. In Chile and in South America in general, what we're doing is we're focusing more on trading aspects and currency valuations and worried about platforms. New York, the same thing, but the U.S. has their own regulatory environment, and we're not, we don't really, mostly building a test platforms out of New York. And in Africa, for developing and emerging markets, we're really doing a lot of mobile work. Merging with BitPesa in Nairobi with Duncan Goldie Scott and those people, and figuring out how to reach the unbanked and underbanked in emerging markets.
That is really interesting. I was curious about what was going on in Kenya, especially with the popularity of M-Pesa. So is BitPesa similar to M-Pesa? What's the difference?
BitPesa is actually a remittance system based on the infrastructure of M-Pesa. So Muscovy was the company that Duncan had founded to do microfinance and micropayments in Kenya. So he just really switched that platform over to Bitcoin as a remittance network. through M-Pesa.
Okay, and that would work with just mobile phones that aren't necessarily smartphones.
Feature phones. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's really interesting. So, what kinds of things do you look for in Bitcoin startups that what indicates that one would show promise?
I personally like people with vision. I like good teams. Every VC or every investor is looking for teams and smart people, but mostly I look for in this space right now, just like the beginning of the internet. This is the wild, wild west. I look for people with far-reaching vision, like Dan or people like that, who see into the application layer. If you look at Bitcoin as the TCP/IP of money, the application layer, the HTML, is what I'm looking for.
And so how did you yourself first find out about Bitcoins? When did you get excited about them?
I bought my first Bitcoin about 2 years ago. And,
so you've been in it for a while.
For a minute, yeah. And I bought lots early on, just to play with, to figure out, is it real or is it not, and just sort of, rode the wave.
Do you remember where you first heard about it?
Yeah, actually, I heard about it first from Peter Vessinis.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I got my first Bitcoin because I had lunch with Peter, and I paid for it. He said, "I don't want you to pay for it. I'll give you, the equivalent in Bitcoin." I got my first blockchain app then. Actually, and so that was a while ago.
Yeah, that's a cool story. So, okay, so are you, that investment that you made in Bitcoin obviously has done well, so...
Yeah, I've invested quite a bit more since, but...
Yeah, I was curious about that. So has your strategy has been invest more and buy and hold?
Well, no, I don't... I'm not like Brock and those guys who this hold. I believe you have to hold 80%, but you've got to spend 20%. You've got to keep it. You've got to keep liquidity in the market, or else you have, no value, right? So... to me, it's really important to have some stake in Liquid to support that ecosystem and keep things moving smoothly.
Yeah. So when you find a promising kind of Bitcoin startup, are you funding them in Bitcoin, or how does that work?
That's a good question. No, not right now. But yes, we will eventually. But we're looking for a more stable platform. I mean, we're really using cash right now. And also services and in-kind services as well, like any good, mentor should do. But that being said, there will be a time where we will move that platform over to digital. Yes.
Right. So having the global coverage is kind of a sweet arrangement, because if some country decides, like the U.S., if they decide, well, we're going to, crack down or whatever on funding companies with Bitcoin or whatever, then you can say, all right, well, we've got stuff going on in Kenya, China, It doesn't matter, Canada.
Exactly. We're in the U.S., we're dragging our feet on this, and it's a shame, kind of, because the world will move ahead regardless. And to me, Bitcoin is an underlying protocol that enables a lot of things on the application level. So to me, it's a branding issue. I'm not married to Bitcoin per se. I am, though, wed really strongly to digital currency. I think Litecoin has great promise. I think Namecoin's really exceptional. And some others, who have promise. Most of them are for crap, actually. But the ones that have the protocols in place are the ones that really are that we're betting on. Yeah.
So you're excited about sort of expanding the idea of Bitcoin into other areas and applications.
Absolutely. We're big believers that, to each place a coin, and a coin for each place. Corporate coins, government issued coins, private and public sector. And it'll be like, 120 years ago in the U.S. we had 1,400 different currencies. People don't, remember that because we don't have that social imperative to look back and say what actually happened before all of this. Centralized currency is a fairly new phenomenon, with human beings. Mostly we've had decentralized currency and local currencies. So I think that's where we're going before we talk about a one world currency. There'll be a multiverse of currencies.
That's really interesting, because I don't know if you've noticed, but people are kind of split on this issue. There are some people who think there can only be one, and it's Bitcoin. And then some people think, well, there's room for a lot more.
That's nonsense. It's like saying there can only be one cola. There's Coke, which is huge and monolithic. Okay, but there's also Pepsi. And there are the also rans like RC Cola, which you don't hear about anymore, or White Rock Cola. Some will die off. Most will die off. But there will be, some exceptional brands that stick out because of their of the structure and because of the ease of use and different kinds of imperatives.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So one last question. Do you have any altcoins? Are you invested in any altcoins personally? Yep.
I'm not saying which, though.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. Okay, so where can people find more about your firm on the internet you, whatever you want?
So you can go to on-21on21.com, or you can go also to mintcombine.com.
Okay, Rick, thanks so much for talking with me today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay. Nice to meet you.
Oh, so great to meet you.
Thanks for listening to episode 68 of Let's Talk Bitcoin. Interviews with John Light and Rick Willard were produced by Stephanie Murphy. Mistaken Identity was produced and edited by Adam B. Levine and featured Stephanie Murphy and Andreas Antonopoulos. Interview with Alan Safahi was produced by Andreas Antonopoulos. Music was provided by Jared Rubens and Calvin Henderson. Questions or comments? Email Adam at letstalkbitcoin.com, but I'm on vacation. Have a good one.